Up next in the broadcast, the opposition party occupies the National Assembly and halts all parliamentary business over the deadlock with the ruling party over a bill to investigate April's deadly ferry disaster. The nation's financial watchdog cuts a deal with Korea's financial sector to allow more capital to flow to small and medium-sized businesses, especially startups and ventures based on technology and innovation. U.S. air surveillance of Islamic State militants in Syria begins as part of America's contribution to counter the threat. Primetime News begins now.
Welcome to Primetime News, live from Seoul. I'm Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Welcome to the program. Glad you could join us tonight. Deadlock in the National Assembly seems to be nothing new these days, especially when it comes to the ferry disaster investigation bill that's at the core of the drama.
Exactly, and things got a little more intense today. Opposition lawmakers launched a sit-in boycotting all legislation until bereaved families get more say regarding this probe. Connie Kim starts us off.
Opposition lawmakers have occupied the National Assembly building, blocking all parliamentary proceedings to press their demand that the ruling party let the victims' families take part in setting up an investigation into the ferry sinking. Following the ruling party's rejection one day earlier to hold three-way talks with the families, lawmakers of the New Politics Alliance for Democracy earlier on Tuesday demonstrated outside the presidential office of Cheongwade, asking President Park Geun-hye to help resolve the deadlock. They joined dozens of members of bereaved families who have been camped out there since Friday.
We will fight against the ruling Saenuri party and the president until they respond to the requests of the victims' families who want to uncover the real causes of the sinking.
The protesters are calling on the ruling party to make yet another concession after the families rejected bipartisan compromise deals twice on the grounds that their voices were not fully reflected in how a probe into the accident will be carried out. The ruling party lashed back at the opposition party, accusing them of abandoning democratic principles and urging them to immediately return to the National Assembly. The Saenuri party said they will not agree on tripartite negotiations, but will seek to talk to the victims' relatives separately. The months-long political deadlock has suspended all legislative proceedings, including bills aimed at revitalizing the economy and ending corruption, as well as an annual parliamentary audit that was scheduled for this Tuesday. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And with what's not happening at the National Assembly, meaning exercising legislative power and passing some other bills, a number of key bills aimed at revitalizing the Korean economy are collecting dust. It's a situation that's putting Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan on edge. Son Jung-in tells us more.
Standing alongside key policymakers on Tuesday morning, Deputy Prime Minister Choi Kyung-hwan sounded the alarm about the state of the Korean economy and called out lawmakers for their inability to pass a number of key bills aimed at reviving it.
The pulse of our economy is weakening. If those bills related to the livelihoods of the people do not pass during this session, and if we fail to stoke the embers of economic recovery, the economy could go off the tracks and we would face difficulties in turning it around.
While Che said he understands the importance of the so-called Seoul ferry bill, he also said that 9 economic bills which have been labeled as urgent need to be passed as soon as possible. Che also pointed out that at least 30 other pending bills need attention as well, all intended to stabilize people's livelihoods. The finance minister asked that lawmakers show leadership moving forward. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Korea is moving to give startups and small to mid-sized firms better access to funds by easing the government's grip over financial institutions. Choi Yoo-sun has the details.
As of June of this year, 73% of corporate loans were made to small and mid-sized businesses, a 10 percentage point drop from the end of 2009. The financial sector, specifically those employed by financial institutions, are often reluctant to take a risk with startups and SMEs as they face sanctions if the borrower becomes insolvent. Reporting to President Park Geun-hye at our economic advisors meeting Tuesday, the state-run Financial Services Commission said it would lift more than 90% of such sanctions. That means, in the case of insolvency, employees will not be deprived of a promotion or bonuses so long as there are no procedural failures. The financial regulator will instead strengthen sanctions on the institutions. To further encourage financial support for the president's envisioned creative economy, which aims to converge ICT, culture, and other areas, the FSC talked about offering incentives to banks that support innovation and technology-based firms. The government also plans to set up a technology-valued investment fund totaling $295 million that will be used as venture capital and more than double another fund that buys a tech firm's intellectual property or shares to guarantee a return on its investments. President Park urged authorities to ensure enough low-interest loans are made available for businesses whose creativity and innovative technology are appreciated. Many financial insiders welcomed the government's sanction reforms, but there were some concerned about how assessing the bank's innovation for incentives could limit their autonomy and push them toward insolvency. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Well, Korea's households may need some help as well as they sink deeper and deeper into debt. The data by the Bank of Korea shows credit purchases and loans by households hit a fresh high in the second quarter of this year, totaling just over $1 trillion. The amount of household credit increased by 6% on year, surpassing the growth of nominal GDP. Korea's household debt has risen for 5 straight quarters. This means a heavier burden when paying off mortgage loans, which in turn could further slow consumption.
Korea's low birth rate problem is worsening every year, emphasizing the need to alleviate burdens associated with raising children before the trend diminishes the country's labor force. Our Kim Ji-yeon explains.
It's becoming harder to hear the crying of newborns in Korea. The nation's birth rate has been on a steady decline over the past 40 years. Currently, it has the lowest birth rate among the 34 OECD member countries. Last year, the number of newborns stood at 436,500, a near 10% decrease from 2012. This means about 8.6 babies were born among a population of 1,000, the lowest since the year 1970, when the government first began recording population data. The age of pregnant mothers, meanwhile, is getting higher, which is one of the main contributing factors for the country's low birth numbers. Last year, the average age of mothers who gave birth was 31.8 years old, 0.2 year older than the previous year. 1 in 5 of them were aged 35 or older. The Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs says the low birth rate trend will affect the labor force in the long run. The number of able workers between the ages of 15 to 64 is estimated to stand at 37.2 million in 2016 and is expected to steadily decrease to less than 9.5 million people by the year 2100.
The country's labor productivity will greatly fall with the growing rise of the aging labor population as there are less newcomers joining the workforce.
The researcher emphasized the need to come up with comprehensive measures to ease the burdens families face when raising children, particularly policies that would help parents balance work and family life. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
In Korea's corporate culture, employees take orders and refrain from questioning their seniors or expressing bold new ideas. But some local IT companies are leading the way and trying to break the status quo in an effort to survive in the global marketplace. Our Yu Leon has more.
Korean IT companies are creating a more casual work environment to promote creativity. Daum Communications, which is set to merge with Korea's largest messenger application company, Kakao Corporation, says it will have its 1,600 workers refer to each other with English names by October. It's intended to eliminate the hierarchy that's standard in Korean culture, where employees are socially obligated to address each other by their position and seniority instead of by their first names like in the West. Town believes the change will allow young staffers to more freely express themselves and enhance communication and cooperation in the process. Naver Corporation took a step in the same direction recently when it said that its employees will stop referring to each other by their titles to create a less formal work environment. Could the seemingly minor changes bring about real changes to Korea's innovation potential? A recent innovation index ranked Korea 16th out of 77 countries, higher than Japan or China. But when it came to the so-called tolerance index, which measures how much a society tolerates different values and thoughts, Korea was ranked near the bottom at 62.
If we look at our Confucianist culture, we were taught that there is a right answer to everything. We're never taught to look for new answers. To foster creativity, we need to learn that there isn't just one correct answer to everything, and understand there could be multiple answers.
With Korea's rigid and hierarchical corporate culture being blamed for stifling creativity, the IT companies are trying to break it down, one English name at a time. Yurian, Arirang News.
Your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang's Sean Lim and Kang Chery from the heart of Seoul.
Begins now.
Primetime news, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Record downpours leading up to Monday took lives and dealt damage to Korea's southeastern Gyeongsang-namdo province. At least 13 are dead or missing. Our Connie Kim has a damage report.
In Changwon, southeast Korea, a city bus is swept away in flash floods caused by heavy rain. Caught in the fast-moving currents, the bus tips onto its side, and in an instant, it disappears, submerged under the rushing water. At least one person was killed in this incident. This is just one of the unfortunate effects of the record rain that drenched southeastern Korea on Monday. Measuring up to 130 millimeters per hour, the torrential rains hit Korea's port city of Busan and nearby regions in Gyeongsang-namdo province, causing landslides, flooding cars and houses, and halting rail services and flights in and out of Gimhae Airport. Officials from the National Emergency Management say at least 13 people have been killed or have gone missing. On Tuesday morning, police continued the search for the missing, with fears that the bodies could have been swept into the nearby ocean. For those confirmed dead, some drowned inside their cars that were stuck in a flooded underground road, while others were swept away by floodwaters. A 65-kilowatt nuclear power plant was also manually shut down for the first time after rain began to seep into the facility. Officials say the Kori plant will resume operations after inspections deem it safe. Within 3 hours, more than 240 millimeters of rain fell in Changwon, Busan, and other surrounding cities. Weather officials say showers are expected this week in central and eastern parts of Korea, with the monsoon season lingering until mid-September. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States are in the middle of conducting their annual joint military drills, but an unhappy North Korea says it might consider unleashing a powerful counterstrike. Our Shin Se-min has more.
North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UN Lee Tong-il says Pyongyang is ready to enhance its countermeasures to the joint military drills between Seoul and Washington.
The DPRK is close to the use of nuclear weapons. They are to take nuclear preemptive strike with all different means of power, including nuclear weapons.
The North Korean envoy also expressed his frustration with the UN Security Council after it failed to acknowledge Pyongyang's request for an emergency meeting in response to the South Korea-US drills. The ambassador said the UN's inaction sends the wrong message to the international community, and the Security Council is encouraging the US to continue its provocative and dangerous joint military exercises against the North. The North Korean official also showed a slightly softer side.
In all these proposals are reflected the principled position of the DPRK on easing of the tension and bringing the national unity.
North Korea has been heavily critical of the joint South Korea-US exercises since they kicked off on August 18th. Earlier this month, Lee said the drills, which mobilized tens of thousands of South Korean and U.S. troops, were the root cause of the prolonged tension on the Korean peninsula. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama has approved air surveillance flights over Syria to gain intelligence on Islamic State militants.
Right. And with more, we now turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, Damascus has had a shaky relationship with the West, to say the least. But what's prompted this change of heart?
Well, the move comes a day after Islamic militants seized control of an airbase in the north of the country. The government says it's ready to work with the international community to fight off Islamic State forces, but that offer came at a caveat, one that will likely limit U.S. military action in the heart of Syria. Our Kwon So-ah has this story.
U.S. military action against Islamic State militants in Syria is a possibility in the near future, as President Barack Obama has authorized surveillance flights over militant targets in Syria. A senior U.S. official says Obama made the decision over the weekend, and according to defense officials on Monday, the Pentagon was preparing to dispatch manned and unmanned aircraft, including drones and spy planes. Earlier, Syria's foreign minister said his country welcomes any international help, including from the U.S., in fighting Islamic State militants.
We are ready to cooperate and coordinate with regional countries and the international community in fighting terrorism following the resolutions of the Security Council. We welcome everybody.
The offer was not unconditional, though. Mualim warned that any U.S. airstrikes must be coordinated with Damascus and that anything else would be considered an aggression. While the surveillance flights are for gathering intelligence on the Islamic State group, they could become precursors for an expansion of airstrikes in Syria, in addition to those that began in Iraq earlier this month. Also on Monday, the UN condemned crimes committed by IS militants in Iraq.
Such cold-blooded, systematic and intentional killing of civilians, after singling them out for their religious affiliation, may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
The UN said there was substantial evidence of widespread rights violations such as targeted killings, abductions, sexual abuse, slavery, and the besieging of specific communities. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
The presidents of Ukraine and Russia have arrived in Belarus to participate in a global summit as the military conflict in eastern Ukraine rages on. All eyes are on the two leaders over whether they'll sit down for peace talks, but hopes for the face-to-face meeting are fading fast. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin are in Belarus for talks Tuesday. The leaders are taking part in a summit of the Russia-led customs union alongside representatives from the European Union. The two briefly met in June. Since then, Ukrainian forces have gained the upper hand against pro-Russian rebels fighting for control over an area in eastern Ukraine. Ukraine said Monday its security services had captured 10 Russian servicemen in the area and also clashed with 10 tanks and 2 armored personnel carriers from Russia. Ukraine has accused Moscow of sending its troops into the country, a claim the Kremlin denies. Over 2,000 people have died in fighting since Russia annexed Crimea in March. In a separate development, Poroshenko dissolved parliament on Monday and announced elections for October 26th. The president said that many of the current MPs were supporters of ousted President Viktor Yanukovych and added that the majority of Ukrainians want a new parliament. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And turning to Los Angeles, where the 66th Primetime Emmy Awards has named Breaking Bad as the best drama series on U.S. television. Creator Vince Gilligan accepted the Emmy statuette for TV's highest honor on Monday, giving most of the credit to his cast and crew. Bryan Cranston, who played the teacher-turned-drug kingpin Walter White, won Best Actor in a Drama, while co-stars Aaron Paul and Anna Gunn each won for their supporting roles.
Actually, it was very hard when it first ended, and that felt more bittersweet. I think now the time has gone by. It just feels like how lucky we are that we keep, having these chances to celebrate and see each other. So.
Modern Family also came on top at the Emmys. The ABC show won Best Comedic Series for the 5th straight year, tying only with the NBC sitcom Frasier for the most comedy victories. And finally, the U.S. retail giant Amazon has bought Twitch, a video game streaming service, in a deal worth nearly $1 billion. Analysts say it's part of Amazon's plan to expand its media empire by capitalizing on the booming esports market. Amazon announced on Tuesday that it would buy Twitch for $970 million in cash, marking one of the biggest acquisitions for the e-commerce company. The takeover came as a shock to many in the tech industry, as Google had been reportedly holding talks with Twitch earlier this year for a possible buyout. Launched in 2011, Twitch has become the de facto video game streaming platform, with more than 55 million unique viewers last month. In a statement, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos said broadcasting and watching gameplay had transformed into a global phenomenon. And that wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to sports. First up, it's baseball, but it's the last stop for the choo-choo train. Texas Ranger outfielder Chu Shin-soo is slated to receive season-ending surgery to remove a bone spur from his left elbow. It's bothered him since spring training and has clearly affected his performance on the field. His slash line hit career lows since getting regular playing time, which includes a paltry .242 batting average. It's also a big blow for not only the 32-year-old, but for the Texas Rangers, who've lost yet another player to injury. And leaving that there, let's get to Tuesday's KBO matchup between the Samsung Lions and Lotte Giants. Now the visitors' Changwon Sam takes on Lotte's Shane Yumin. We go to the first inning. Samsung scores first as Lee hits one home, but Lotte ties it up in the third. But Samsung comes back with two in the fourth to make it 3-1. Now, bottom of that frame, Shin Bong-gi. He starts the three-run rally to put Lotte back up. But by the seventh, it's tied 5-5 when Lee starts the rally for Samsung for 3 runs. Right now, it's 10-7. In the bottom of the ninth inning, Samsung leads. And looking at the other games, Hanwha leads NC 3-2 in the top of the ninth inning. Meanwhile, LG and Tucson and Kia and Nexon had their games rained out. And shifting gears to tennis, the last Grand Slam tournament of 2014, the U.S. Open Championships, have begun in New York City. Round 1, day 1, kicked off with the top pros in action. For the men, top-ranked Novak Djokovic, Australian Open champ Stan Wawrinka, Andy Murray and others made it through. For the ladies, Maria Sharapova, Simona Halep and Agnieszka Radwanska are notable names that made it to the next round. The tournament runs through Sunday, September 8th. And now to the Premier League. Manchester United has agreed to pay top dollar to Spain's Real Madrid for winger Angel Di Maria. Sorely in need of an offensive spark, British news outlets say Man U will pay an English transfer record of £59.7 million. That's about $99 million for Di Maria's services. Meanwhile, Liverpool has welcomed Italian striker Mario Balotelli, after finalizing a £16 million or nearly $27 million move with AC Milan. He was on the sidelines Monday evening as Liverpool fell to Man City 3-1 at Etihad Stadium. And finally, Asian Games officials announced the completion of the Athletes Village near Incheon and that they're ready to open next month. I'll be there for sure, but that wraps it up for me for now. Your weather update is up next.
Hello everyone, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. Getting straight to the weather at the moment, due to instability in the atmosphere, some inland regions are receiving sporadic showers. Also, brace yourselves for more rainfall tomorrow as 5 to 40 millimeters is expected nationwide, while more than 60 millimeters is expected near Mount Chery. Showers may be accompanied by strong winds and thunder. Well, 5 to 40 millimeters is a lot less compared to yesterday's 100 to 200 millimeters of heavy downpours, but keep in mind that torrential rain has weakened ground over in the southern coastal regions. Other than that, things will clear up by tomorrow evening, and overall it looks to be a cloudy one. On to Wednesday's readings. Seoul soars to 31, while Daegu and Gwangju hits at 28. On to other regions. Jeju tops out at 26, Dokdo and Mangkumgang at 23. That'll do it for now, but I'll be back with more updates after midnight. See you then.
All right, thanks, Po-kyung, and that's Primetime News for this Tuesday. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Chery. Thanks for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you soon.